To introduce our keynote speaker, I have the honor of inviting Wafaa El-Sadr, Executive Vice President of Columbia Global and Global Director of ICAP at Columbia University.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm really honored to be here with all of you and to have the opportunity to introduce the esteemed ambassador. First, I'll just mention that my office is right upstairs here on the 3rd floor, and I always look forward to this event, the Brazil Climate Summit, because it's an amazing opportunity for me to see so many people from one of my favorite countries in the world, Brazil, and to see also the amazing vibrance and energy that Brazilians have. Just walking down the hallways, up and down, including right outside my office, the animation, the connections, the discourse is just so, it really is infectious. You just feel like when you're with Brazilians, you feel like you can change the world. So thank you. So now let me get to my introduction. So again, it's a great honor to be here with you today on behalf of Columbia University and also on behalf of Columbia Global. To welcome you to this is the concluding session of this year's Brazil Climate Summit at the Forum. As you know, this gathering is an annual tradition now and is a product of a really valuable and amazing partnership with the Brazil Climate Institute and the Columbia Global Center in Rio de Janeiro. And many of you are aware of the Global Center in Rio de Janeiro. However, I will let you know that we celebrated the 12th year anniversary of our Global Center in Rio. And I'd like to just take a minute to acknowledge the founding director, Tom Trebat. Stand up, Tom. While Tom is not really born as a Brazilian, but he is a Brazilian, and he brings that enthusiasm and energy and passion to everything he touches. Thank you for all your hard work and commitment, Tom. I would also like to acknowledge many of the Columbia alumni in Brazil who are here. Several of them are here today, and others who have been supporting the center over the past more than decade. And I especially want to acknowledge, of course, Luciana Ribeiro, the co-founder of the Brazil Climate Summit. Thank you very much for your amazing success. Now, throughout today, I know that there have been many conversations, many discussions like the panel we just witnessed. And I think all of these discussions have again and again reinforced the urgency and the interconnectedness of the challenges that we're all facing. From agriculture, we heard forestry, energy, AI, finance. I think the message has been clear again and again that progress depends on all of us working collaboratively across the different sectors. And that, of course, as we know, that bold action is what's needed at this point in time. Now, at Columbia Global, I'll tell you just a bit about what we do. Our mission is, one of our missions is what we say is really to do the thinking and the doing. We link the thinking and the doing. And one of our purposes is to convene across borders, across disciplines, and also across different perspectives. And I'll give you one example that, as an example, we have 10 global centers, including in Rio. These, at this point in time, at these global centers from Beijing to Nairobi to Paris, and of course at Rio, we're hosting online conversations that we have entitled The Road to COP30. And these look at the big questions that are shaping the local discourse in the context of where these global centers are situated and bring these conversations from the local to the global. So now I'll shift to introducing our esteemed guest. So against this backdrop, it's a great privilege and indeed an honor to welcome and introduce Brazil's ambassador and president of COP30, André Corrêa do Lago, to this closing session of the summit. Now, Ambassador Corrêa do Lago has long been one of the world's most respected diplomats on climate and sustainable development. Over decades of service, he has represented Brazil in multitude of events and venues, and he has served with distinction in the United Nations climate negotiations and, of course, in more recent COP gatherings. He has also served as the personal envoy of Brazilian president to the G20 and many other contexts, as well as Brazil's ambassador to India and Japan, bringing a global perspective to his country's climate and foreign policy. He's also been a leading voice on the links between climate policy, energy, cities, and architecture, authoring books and essays that reflect his commitment, but also deep intellectual engagement with sustainability. So we are really grateful for your presence with us today. I want to take a minute to introduce as well Marina Cançado, and she will be actually the person who will be moderating the conversation with the ambassador. And she's a co-founder of the Brazil Climate Summit and founder of Converge Capital. We're grateful for her leadership and look forward to the conversation that she will be moderating tonight. So I want to introduce now with great pleasure and invite the ambassador and Marina to come up. Thank you very much. Obrigada.
Wow, what an amazing day. I think we are so grateful to close the fourth edition of the Brazil Climate Summit with such a good vibe, such good energy, and we are truly honored to have you, Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago, with us. I think on behalf of the Brazil Climate Summit team, we are very grateful, especially 50 days ahead of COP, that you are here with us today. And actually, it's not his first time in the Brazil Climate Summit. Actually, it's his third time in a row. And we were very, it's something that we always talk in the Brazil Climate Summit, that in the last editions, he was always seated in the front rows, taking notes, eager to learn, eager to listen to everyone, and I think observing your way of learning and be engaging with this event made us admire you even more. So thank you. So let's talk about COP. COP30 is symbolic on many levels. 30 years since the first COP, which was a result of Rio 92. We are celebrating 10 years of the Paris Agreement, so a lot of expectations around COP. What are the results that COP30 has to deliver to be considered a success?
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to thank Wafaa for the very kind words. And I really recognize the Brazilians here by this excitement of being here. And by the way, I take the opportunity, since you mentioned I like architecture, that it's wonderful to be in a Renzo Piano building that is so amazing. It's always good to be surrounded by good architecture. And I want to thank all of you for being here. And Marina, you asked me a difficult question because we have to manage the expectations, regarding COP30. And I'm delighted that there are lots of expectations. But I think that we have to have expectations at different levels, because we're going to have the formal negotiation. The formal negotiation, as you all know, is particularly complex because you need consensus. Then the formal negotiations also only start after you have an agenda, and the agenda also needs consensus, and the themes of this year are a bit difficult because some of the most talked about themes of the COP are not in the agenda. The NDCs, for instance, the discussion of the NDCs, the 1.3 trillion is also not in the agenda, although they will be looming subjects during the conference. But then you're going to have the action agenda. And the action agenda, I think, is very innovative because we structured it to find solutions for the many things that we already agreed. And I think this is going to give a very special dynamic. And I have to mention how happy I was to watch two of the special envoys in the previous discussion talking so enthusiastically about what we can achieve, and I agree with them. And don't think that I only watched you here. I was watching you from the room there, so I saw everything you said. But I'm completely fascinated by the number of people that are supporting us at the COP. And the special envoys understood very well, I have to say the word, the mutirão, because one of the elements of the mutirão, which is this movement towards the same objective, is that you don't have a centralized operation. You need to give lots of autonomy to all the actors. And I'm so glad because with all the autonomy that you have, you've been building so many things, and it's really like dream special envoys. And remember that your job is until November next year. Don't think that you get rid in Belém, because one of the things of trying to define what are the results of Belém is that we're going to have to build it also next year. Because it's going to be very intense, I think there's going to be many things. So I didn't answer your question, but I promise you there's going to be lots of results.
Okay, so let's go back to the NDCs. So by COP30, all parties to the Paris Agreement must submit new nationally determined contributions that reflect bolder ambitions that are crucial to change the trajectory, the current trajectories of global warming. And to accelerate the delivery of the NDCs, there will be a meeting next week with Lula and the Secretary General to foster the delivery of the more ambitious NDCs. You have been involved in climate negotiations for many years. Brazil is recognized by its climate diplomacy. How Brazil can support that other countries submit these more ambitious NDCs?
Well, you know that in the Paris Accord was possible because somehow everything is voluntary. So you cannot force countries to do things. Why was it voluntary? Because you will ask. Because the original reason for the Paris Accord was to bring back the United States to the negotiations, because we had Kyoto, but the US were absent, because the Senate of the US had decided that they would never ratify an agreement in which you would have a differentiation between countries with obligations and countries that don't have obligations, which was the case of Kyoto between developing and developed countries. So Paris was designed for the US to join. So there is a certain irony that the US is leaving. But anyway, but the fact, you can interpret in many ways, but the fact is that since there is no obligation, you cannot tell countries, come on, you have to present your NDCs, because if not, no, it's voluntary. But there are deadlines, it's nice if you present, et cetera, et cetera. And the Secretary General and President Lula wanted to do in the most subtle and correct way to bring, to create a circumstance in which countries would have the opportunity to present their NDCs in a special way. The very good news is that we thought, according to the UN, we were thinking that like 50 or 60 countries would be participating in the event, and today I learned that we have more than 100 countries that are going to participate in the meeting next week. So I think it's working very well, and this is the kind of thing that you have to do in a subtle way to get a better result. I think it worked. So I think with the announcement of the EU yesterday, I think we will have enough numbers to have a consistent synthesis report at the end of October, with numbers that will indicate, as you were mentioning before, that we need to know how far we are from the objectives of Paris. And again, since I'm very Brazilian, so I'm an optimist, you know, so I have to bring the optimistic side. When we were negotiating Paris, we were on the trajectory of 4 degrees. Now we are around 2.7. We hope that with the synthesis report, we're going to be even lower. But the fact is that Paris is working. This is, I think, the first thing that we have to remember with the 10 years.
And I heard you say in an interview that after 30 years, most of the negotiations already happened, and now it's time for implementation, so to shift to implementation. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, the UNFCCC and the Paris Accord were, and mostly UNFCCC and Paris Accord were designed for negotiation. So, because you need to have rules to go ahead, no? And in fact, there was like, we agreed on having a rule book of things that we had to decide for Paris to be implemented. And this rule book is basically already negotiated. So that's why we can claim that Belém will be a COP of implementation. It's not that it's better than others, but it's because we already had all these COPs before. And Dubai was very important, and Baku also, because things that were pending, like, for instance, Article 6, you're talking about carbon markets, these things were negotiated. So this can be an implementation COP, thanks to the job that was done in previous COP. So I think that this circumstance allow us to try in Belém something that was not done yet, which is to decouple negotiation and implementation. Not that they have to be separated, but in the sense that people have to understand that we don't need to negotiate how we're going to implement. No? Obviously, we need to have financial resources, we need to have technology access, etc., etc. But the rules are there. The rules are already there. So now countries, again, because it's a voluntary exercise, countries have to use these rules in their favor. And I think that Brazil has exceptional circumstances to use these rules in our favor. We are delighted that the rules can also will be very good for other countries. But we have, I think, in Brazil, this that you could see today here, is that you have in Brazil the best experts on Brazil. So this is very, very important. This was not true in 1991 before the Earth Summit. We relied very much on foreign knowledge, and we had lots of, we needed more institutions, we needed more people. Today, we are experts of Brazil. And so this is something that Brazil can offer to the world that I think is very attractive for investment. And what was great about today is that you talked about technology, about agriculture, about forestry, about heavy industry, completely different dimensions. In all of them, you are going to have Brazilians that will show that the country is ready to receive investments.
So to guide implementation, your fourth letter proposed an action agenda with 6 pillars. What are your expectations about how the private sector can really step in and deliver concrete solutions?
Well, then there is the 7th letter. I know, lots of letters, inviting specifically the private sector, but to explain a little more about the action agenda. The private sector is simply essential because from a rational point of view, and that's why we thought it's important to decouple implementation from negotiation, is that negotiation, only countries can negotiate. The private sector can pressure the country for the country to have a position or another position. But the fact is that the negotiation is it's responsibility of the countries. The implementation, it's obvious that central governments are very important, but local governments are even more important, for instance, for adaptation. The local governments are more important than the central government. Then you need the private sector because the numbers are very clear. If you take all the funds that we have been able to put together through negotiations, and with all the resources that we could get for these funds all over these years, you are going to see that with the GCF, with the JEF, with all the funds that you have, you don't reach 40, let's be optimistic, $50 billion. And we're talking about $1.3 trillion. So for this to happen, you're going to need different sources for financing, and you're going to need the private sector to be the one that is going to oversee and develop those projects. So for the Belém COP, the private sector and civil society are absolutely key. And I think that these are the big strengths of Brazil. We have a very recognized and respected private sector, and we have a very dynamic civil society with all I think, the qualities of our diversity. I think that us as Brazilians, we grew up valuing diversity. We think diversity is an enriching element of our society. And so, civil society and the private sector are absolutely key for what we would like to call a success of Belém.
So we will be in Belém, showcasing many of the Brazilian transformative cases. So it's a unique opportunity for Brazil to show what we are doing at scale. What we can do in the next 50 days to really seize the moment. What advice would you give for us of the private sector to really seize the moment and show the world the amazing solutions that we have? Are we doing good so far, or we could do more?
I think we are. I think we are. No, I think we are. I think we are. I think that the first objective of COP30 was to have this internal movement in Brazil to understand the opportunities of this agenda. This happened in 1992 in Brazil. It completely changed the perception of Brazil regarding the agenda. I think that in this past year, there was such an involvement of inside Brazil, of states, of cities, and also of institutions, for instance. I think that very few people can see the dimension, for instance, of what CNI is doing with the SB COP. It's an amazing thing. I mean, it's a sector that a few years ago, people, you remember the negotiations, WTO, etc., everybody would think that CNI was an institution that was very conservative. CNI has been incredible with this. CNA, the agriculture one, is also incredibly active. And with the stimulation of Dan Yoshpi, our champion, it's an incredible title. No, he is what is the
high-level climate champion.
High-level champion. there is no title that the Brazilian would love more. So I envy so much them. But anyway, so we have a super high-level champion. We have the special envoys. Everybody's so active, and the local governments, and you're having like small COPs in different regions, and the rediscovery of what the different biomes can do. And I think that Dennis was saying something extremely important that I saw in the video, which is to understand how the different regions of Brazil have their own intentions and realities regarding their future. I think that I'm from the central government, so it's a bit delicate to say that. But the fact is that all regions of Brazil resent very much a centralized vision from Brasilia that decides what each region is going to do. This happened in more unfortunate times, and by the way, the results were really not particularly brilliant. But we have to remember, for instance, something that very few foreigners imagine, it's a number that people are very impressed, is that Brazil is 87% urban. The Amazon biome, not the Amazonas, not the legal Amazon, the Amazon biome is 75% urban. So the solutions that we think for the Amazon, generally people are thinking of the forest. We need solutions for the cities. We need solutions for the youth. It's the last area of Brazil where you still have a growing number of young people. So the reality of the Amazon, and one of the greatest moments I had as president designate of the COP was last month in Manaus, by the way, you were there, was when all the technological institutes of the Amazon and the universities presented their vision of solutions for the Amazon, structured in the logic of the action agenda. So with the 6 pillars and the 30 main subjects. So it was wonderful because you were seeing these results from inside Brazil. So coming back, I'm sorry, I take a long time, but it is what we have achieved inside Brazil is already a great result of the COP, because Brazil, with with so many people that are experts in Brazil, to understand and to understand the contemporary aspects of this agenda, we can have enormous gains in this agenda. And so this is already a great achievement. Then there is the international thing, and although Brazil is big, we don't control so much the international circumstances. And by the way, if we control the international circumstances, they would be quite better than the ones that we have now. But the thing is that we will have to deal with the reality that there are many challenges. But I think that we are preparing something that is longer term. But it's not long term, because I believe very much that we have to always have in our minds urgency, the urgency, because science tells us we have few years to do the right things, and everything that we do now will have a much better impact if we do the same thing in 5 years or in 8 years. So we have to accelerate. That's why we want so much this COP to be seen as a COP of solutions, a COP of implementation, a COP of action.
So let's fast forward. We are in the day after COP ends. What are the headlines that you hope to see in the media?
I'll be sleeping.
After you woke up.
No, I'd love a COP that really people recognize that it's a COP of implementation, that it's a COP of adaptation, that it's a COP that really fulfilled the main themes of the negotiation, but it's a COP that brought a perception that this agenda is evolving strongly. I mean, not that it's paralyzed or that it's going backwards. It's going forward, and I think it's very important that people recognize that people recognize that there are much more opportunities, that it has, it is so present in the economy, but creating much more opportunities than difficulties.
So I want to end this conversation talking about hope and joy. So you are in a very privileged position because you are talking with youth activists, you are talking with CEOs, with other governments. What gives you hope, despite climate change being the greatest challenge and the deadlines and the urgency and all the challenges? What gives you hope and what gives you joy to move on? I learned with Mary Robson in the London Climate Week that for us that work with climate, joy is crucial. So what gives you hope and joy?
You have difficult questions. Look, the main problem of climate change is energy. And for the world. No, it's not the case in Brazil because we are a bit jabuticaba style. No, so we have our profile of emissions is completely different from all the large economies. But in general, in the world, it's about energy, and it's in energy that we have the most incredible answers. We have today, according to most experts, solar is the least expensive energy. And on top of being the least expensive energy, because we have to remember that the alternatives, the installation is more expensive or takes longer. So, for instance, for gas, the infrastructure for installation of gas, you have a line to get the equipment. So I have the confirmation of Siemens here. So, for nuclear is good for climate. There is no doubt about it. But the initial investment is enormous, and it takes years and years to build a nuclear facility. So the good news is that you have alternatives in the sector that you need to reduce more emissions. But it's not only what many people are seeing is that the increase of energy is being with renewables, but you're not reducing enough the installed capacity that you have today. But the fact is that you have answers. I think that if at this COP we could have answers for forests, I think it would be also an amazing result. Again, it's not in the negotiations, but I think that we can have very important answers, not only with the TFFF for conservation of forests, but with carbon credits for restoration of forests that really have a price, that become attractive and that become realistic to convince all over the world that this is going to be a good solution. So I think that the economic answers, because I know we have all the philosophical and ethical reasons to be favorable to what needs to be done to fight climate change. I think that in an ideal world, these would be the reasons. We know it's dangerous. We know it's going to kill lots of people. We know it's going to be a disaster for the economy. But if to convince those that are reluctant, we need to have credible economic answers. And this is what makes me quite optimistic, is that there are economic answers, and they are getting better and better. Now, it's a race, unfortunately, because climate change is arriving much earlier than we thought. And so this is, I think, the great challenge, is the urgency. But I think that we have most of the answers we need, and we have some countries that have proven that even if they were not responsible to do what needed to be done, they have accelerated the fight against climate change in an amazing way. China, with its scale, have allowed the reduction of the cost of energy in an amazing way, of electric cars also in an amazing way. India has a potential to reduce also many of the costs that is really something that we're all expecting. So many amazing engineers from India to have more and more good ideas. So that's why I'm optimistic in that sense. Now, unfortunately, the acceleration of the impact of climate change is really very bad news. But the more we have economic answers, the more we're going to have the reluctant actors embracing this agenda. And I think we do have these economic answers.
So let's end with a call to action. What can, but I have one more. What can, but because it's a call to action to our audience. What can we do, this audience, in the next 50 days to help COP30 to succeed? What do you want us to do?
I have to answer. I think that if there is something that is still, that we can still do more, is to have more, to have more examples of solutions. We already have these activation groups that are putting together lots of these elements, but I think that a stronger participation in the action agenda is something that would be wonderful. And I just want to remind a very subtle but very important difference. The action agenda doesn't need the approval of 195 countries to happen. The action agenda is really about action, and it's about all the actors that cannot negotiate. So it's the subnationals, it's the business, it's academia, it's civil society. So I think that's an even bigger movement of information for the action agenda to have more and more solutions. I think this is something that would be fantastic for the COP.
So I think we can all imagine the weight, the pressure that you are carrying in your shoulders in service of our shared future. So we are extremely grateful for the work that you are doing for the planet, for all of us. So let's give a huge round of applause for this incredible leader.
Everyone, I would like only 5 more minutes of your attention. I promise, we're almost over. So it was an amazing day. I want to thank you all for being here and for supporting this event. And to really close out the day, I would like to welcome to the stage again to their final remarks, Marina, Luciana, Jorge, and Arthur.
Just 2 minutes before the wine and the beer and the celebration, I think our message here, we wanted to end this event with a call to action for our engagement in COP30. So there are many opportunities for us to engage and be part of this relevant agenda. So we have events happening in São Paulo, like the Climate Implementation Summit that is happening on November 8th in São Paulo, and we'll gather 500 plus CEOs to spotlight transformative solutions from all over the world. In Belém, we have one day dedicated to bring together the financial sector, Brazilian, international, at the investment COP. We created, with the support of Arapiaú, X, Itaúsa, COP30 Events. That is a platform, a website that you can access through this QR code that is collecting, mapping, and sharing events that are happening in Belém, in São Paulo, in Rio de Janeiro. So I think the message from the ambassador was very clear. We need to be present. We need to showcase our solutions. So let's seize the opportunities, enjoy these events that are being prepared so the private sector can send this strong message of commitment. Lu?
Every time we start to do a Brazil Climate Summit, we think, what can we do better, what we can do different? And honestly, I'm so happy because I think that we have, again, done an amazing job of bringing people together, discussing, and with this amazing finale here with Ambassador André Corrêa do Lago. So thank you very much for coming. We are accepting ideas of how to improve for next year because now it's going to be very tough to have something different and better than this one. And just to finalize, we are also organizing some events by SB COP. And as Ambassador Corrêa do Lago mentioned, we are gathering lots of cases from the private sector that showcase what has been done so far and how we can advance the agenda. So if everyone has cases, if you are interested in helping SB COP, please let us know. Thank you very much.
I think everything's been said, okay, so, and a lot of things. If you don't know what Mutirão is about, you shouldn't be here, okay, so. So this is really what it is, and I think the only message I leave to you, okay, and come to Belém. I think it's very important being there, okay. There will be events in São Paulo, there will be events in Rio. It will be difficult, maybe it's as expensive as coming to New York, but I think there's no excuse not to be there if you think this is important.
And just to reinforce what Artur just said, it's going to be a very symbolic COP, as we're all saying. And it's our responsibility to be there and to support the symbols. And if you're not convinced because of that, so come not only to Belém, but come to São Paulo, come to Rio. We've been talking about solutions. There are interesting cases in Brazil everywhere. You can go to São Paulo, to Rio, but also to Mato Grosso and to Manaus to get to know different business models in the Amazon. And if you're still not convinced, I would invite all of you to come, stay a few days in Belém, take some time off, and get to know the largest tropical forest in the world. For those of you who have never been there, once you are there, it's going to be a transformative experience. It's really different, and it will touch your hearts in a different way because it's different from everything you've seen. You're going to understand a little bit more of the Amazon. If you're still not convinced, as Wafaa was saying, I promise you, we're going to use all the Brazilian energy to make the funniest COP ever. Thank you very much.
We are gonna have a reception on the first floor, ground floor.
Pessoal da camisa verde.